At 8:00 p.m. on a Friday, Marcus Sterling was the richest man in Manhattan. He stood at the center of the world, holding a glass of vintage scotch, surrounded by admirers, celebrating a merger that would cement his legacy forever. He had the perfect company, the perfect mistress, and the perfect silent wife. But he made one fatal calculation. He assumed his wife's silence was submission. He was wrong. It was preparation. By the time the sun rose over Central Park the next morning, Marcus wouldn't just be single, he would be destitute. This is the story of how Elena Sterling didn't just leave her husband, she deleted him. The charity gala for the Sterling Foundation was the kind of event where the flowers cost more than most people's college tuition. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was suffocatingly warm, scented with expensive perfume and the metallic tang of ambition. Elena Sterling stood by the ice sculpture, a silent observer in a gown of emerald silk that draped over her slender frame like liquid armor. She swirled her sparkling water, watching her husband, Marcus. Marcus Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics, was holding court near the orchestra. He was handsome in that aggressive predator way, sharp jawline, expensive teeth, and eyes that looked through people rather than at them. He was currently laughing at a joke made by Senator Reynolds, his hand resting casually yet possessively on the lower back of his chief of communications, Jessica Thorne. To the untrained eye, it looked like a boss and his employee sharing a moment of professional triumph. The Helios merger had just gone through yesterday. Sterling Dynamics had acquired a massive rival, ensuring Marcus's dominance in the tech sector for the next decade. But Eleanor had a trained eye. She saw the way Marcus's thumb traced the fabric of Jessica's dress. She saw the way Jessica leaned into the touch, her eyes darting toward Elena with a mix of pity and triumph. "He's in high spirits tonight," a voice said beside her. Elena didn't turn. She knew the voice. It was Arthur Penhaligon, the company's CFO, and one of the few people Marcus actually feared. "The Helios deal is closed, Arthur," Elena said, her voice calm, betraying nothing. "He feels invincible." Arthur took a sip of his drink. "He feels invincible because the code you wrote for the logistics algorithm is the only reason the evaluation passed due diligence. Does he plan on acknowledging that?" Elena finally turned to look at the older man. "Does it matter? The company wins. We all win." "You win nothing, Elena," Arthur murmured, lowering his voice. "I saw the draft of the new trust fund allocation. He's moving assets into offshore accounts in the Caymans, accounts your name isn't on." Elena's expression didn't flicker. "I know." Arthur blinked, surprised. "You know?" "I know about the accounts, Arthur. I know about the apartment he bought for Jessica in Tribeca under the shell company Red Nova LLC. I know that he plans to serve me divorce papers on Monday morning, citing irreconcilable differences so he can marry her before the fiscal year ends." Arthur stared at her, his glass freezing halfway to his mouth. "Elena, if you know, why are you standing here drinking water? You need a lawyer. You need to secure your intellectual property." Elena looked back at Marcus. He was now toasting with champagne, Jessica beaming by his side. He looked like a king. "I don't need a lawyer, Arthur," Elena said softly. "I need a timeline. What time do the Asian markets open?" Arthur frowned, confused by the shift. "Tokyo opens in 4 hours. Why?" Elena placed her water glass on a passing tray. She checked her watch. It was a Patek Philippe, a gift from Marcus for their 5th anniversary. He had engraved it. "Time is money." 4 hours, she whispered. "That should be enough." She looked at Arthur one last time. "Go home, Arthur. Sell your personal stock options in Sterling Dynamics. Do it tonight. through the after-hours trading desk. "Elena, what are you going to do?" She didn't answer. She simply adjusted the diamond clasp of her clutch, smoothed her dress, and began to walk. She didn't walk toward Marcus to cause a scene. She didn't walk toward Jessica to throw a drink. Elena Sterling walked toward the exit. As she passed the circle of sycophants surrounding her husband, Marcus caught her eye. He frowned, annoyed that she was moving without his permission. He mouthed the word, "Where?" Elena didn't mouth anything back. She simply offered him a small ghost of a smile so cold it should have frozen the champagne in his glass, and walked out the double doors. Marcus scoffed, turning back to Jessica. "Let her go. She's probably got a headache. She's weak." Jessica giggled, whispering in his ear. "She's irrelevant, Marcus. Tonight is about the future." "To the future," Marcus said, raising his glass. He had no idea that his future had just walked out the door, and she had the keys to the kingdom in her clutch. The valet brought the car around. It wasn't the Sterling limousine. It was a nondescript black sedan Elena had ordered via a ride-share app under a pseudonym. "Where to, Ma'am?" the driver asked. "Teterboro Airport," Elena said. She pulled a phone out of her clutch. It wasn't her primary iPhone. It was a burner, a cheap Android device. She dialed a number. "Initiate Protocol 0, she said. On the other end, a distorted voice replied. "Authorization code required. Code Prometheus Unbound. Authorization Elena Vance." There was a pause. "Protocol initiated. The wipe begins in T-10 minutes. Good luck, Ms. Vance." She hung up and rolled down the window, tossing the burner phone into a sewer grate as the car merged onto the highway. She took a deep breath. For 10 years, she had been Elena Sterling, the trophy wife. The former data analyst who got lucky marrying the boss. The world had forgotten that before she was a wife, Elena Vance was a prodigy at MIT. They forgot that she was the one who built the Core X architecture that Sterling Dynamics ran on. Marcus was the face, he was the salesman. But Eleanor was the brain. And lobotomies are painful. Back at the plaza, the party was winding down. It was 1 a.m. Marcus was drunk on success and scotch. He stumbled into the limo with Jessica, not caring who saw. To the penthouse, Marcus barked at the driver. "What about Elena?" Jessica asked, feigning concern. "Who cares?" Marcus laughed, loosening his tie. "Let her sleep in the guest room. Monday she's out. I've got the prenup ironclad. She gets the house in the Hamptons and a monthly stipend. That's it. I keep the company. I keep the billions." They arrived at the Sterling penthouse on 57th Street, a triplex in the sky overlooking the park. Marcus used his thumbprint to open the private elevator. They stumbled into the foyer. It was quiet. Too quiet. "Elena?" Marcus shouted, his voice echoing off the marble floors. No answer. "She's probably sulking in bed," Marcus muttered. He led Jessica toward the master bedroom. He kicked the door open. The bed was made. Perfectly. Not a wrinkle in the Egyptian cotton sheets. Marcus frowned. He walked to the walk-in closet, a space the size of a small apartment. He threw the doors open. What the? Empty. Not just missing a few dresses. Empty. The racks where her couture gowns hung were bare. The shelves that held her Hermes bags were dusted and vacant. The jewelry safe was open and empty. "Did she move out?" Jessica asked, looking around the cavernous space. Marcus felt a prickle of irritation. "She must have hired movers while we were at the gala. That petty, fine. It saves me the trouble of kicking her out." He marched over to his side of the closet, where his bespoke suits hung. He reached for the biometric safe, hidden behind a false panel. This was where he kept the hard drives, the backups, the black ledger, the leverage he had on senators and competitors. He pressed his thumb against the scanner. Beep! A red light flashed. Access denied. Marcus blinked. He wiped his thumb on his shirt and pressed it again. Beep! Biometric mismatch. Damn it, Marcus hissed. He punched in the manual override code, 198500. His birth date. Beep! Code invalid. What is going on? Jessica asked, sensing the shift in the air. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm going to call security. I'm going to have her arrested for theft. He tapped the screen. The Face ID didn't recognize him. He typed in his passcode. Device erased. Please sign in. His stomach dropped. It felt like the elevator had just cut its cable. He ran to the bedside table and grabbed the landline, an old-fashioned secure line connected directly to the Sterling private server. There was no dial tone, just a dead, static hiss. Marcus? Jessica's voice was trembling now. Why are the lights flickering? The smart home system, controlled by a central server in the basement, suddenly surged. The lights blazed to 100% brightness, blinding white, then shut off completely. The automated blinds rolled up, exposing the windows to the city lights. On the 85-inch television screen mounted on the wall, the static cleared. A single line of text appeared in white courier font against a black background. Hello, Marcus. You wanted total control. Now you have nothing. Marcus stared at the screen. For the first time in his life, the alcohol evaporated from his system, replaced by a cold, sharp terror. The silence in the penthouse was shattered by the sound of Jessica's phone ringing. It's the office, Jessica said, looking at the screen. It's the graveyard shift IT manager. Give it to me, Marcus snarled, snatching the phone. This is Sterling. Mr. Sterling, thank God. The young man on the other end was hyperventilating. We have a situation, a code red. What kind of situation? We're locked out, sir. Everything. The email servers, the cloud backups, the financial logistics software. It started 10 minutes ago. The system just ate itself. What do you mean, ate itself? Marcus roared, pacing the dark room, illuminated only by the city glow. It's a cascading encryption, sir. It's rewriting the source code in real time. Every time we try to stop it, it deletes another terabyte of data. We tried to access the root directory to kill the power, but the admin passwords have been changed. Changed to what? Sir, the username has been changed to Ghostwriter, and the password hint is the real founder. Marcus froze. He looked at Jessica, who was shivering in her expensive dress. The real founder. 7 years ago, when Sterling Dynamics was a failing startup, it was Elena who stayed up for 3 weeks straight, rewriting the garbage code Marcus had bought from a defunct developer. She had fixed it. She had optimized it. She had built the engine that made him a billionaire. And he had never given her a single share of stock. He told her it was cleaner if he held the equity, and she was just his wife. What's mine is yours, babe, he had said. Get the legal team on the phone, Marcus ordered, his voice shaking. Get the CTO. Get everyone into the office now. We can't call them, sir, the IT tech stammered. The company directory is gone. The employee contacts were hosted on the internal server. It's all gone. Marcus threw Jessica's phone against the wall. It shattered. We have to go to the office, Marcus said, grabbing his keys. We have to physically stop the servers. They ran to the elevator. Marcus hammered the button. Nothing happened. The smart elevator was dead. We have to take the stairs, he spat. It's 40 floors, Marcus, Jessica cried. Walk or stay here and rot. They descended 40 flights of concrete stairs, their gala clothes stained with sweat. By the time they reached the lobby, Marcus was gasping for air. The doorman looked at him with concern. "Mr. Sterling, is everything all right? Your credit card was declined for the late-night food delivery you ordered." Marcus ignored him and ran out into the rain. He didn't have his phone to call an Uber. He didn't have a wallet. He had left it in the jacket upstairs, and he wasn't going back up. He hailed a yellow cab, looking like a madman in a tuxedo. "Wall Street, Sterling Tower. Now." "Cash up front, buddy," the cabbie said, eyeing him suspiciously. Marcus patted his pockets. Empty. He looked at Jessica. "Give him money." Jessica opened her clutch. I only have a 20. "Take it," Marcus screamed, throwing the bill at the driver. The ride to Wall Street took 20 minutes. Every minute felt like a year. When they arrived at the sleek glass tower that bore his name, the lobby was in chaos. People were running around. Security guards looked confused. The turnstiles were locked down, flashing red. Marcus vaulted over the turnstile. He sprinted to the server room on the 5th floor. The glass walls of the server room revealed the horror inside. The lights on the server racks, usually a calm, blinking green, were solid orange. Arthur Penhaligon was standing there, watching the screens. He looked calm. He was wearing his coat, holding a box of personal belongings. "Arthur!" Marcus grabbed him by the lapels. "Stop this! You have the master key. Override the system." Arthur gently removed Marcus's hands. "I can't, Marcus. The encryption is using the Vance protocol." "What the hell is the Vance protocol?" "It's a fail-safe Elena wrote 5 years ago. She told me it was a defense against corporate espionage. If anyone tried to steal the core IP, the system would encrypt itself and transfer the ownership keys to an external, offline drive." Arthur looked at Marcus with a mixture of pity and disgust. "She didn't activate it against a hacker, Marcus. She activated it against you." "Where is the key?" Marcus screamed. "Where is the external drive?" "I imagine," Arthur said, checking his watch. "It's currently somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean." "Fix it. I resigned an hour ago, Marcus," Arthur said, "and I sold my stock. You're on your own." Arthur walked away, leaving Marcus staring at the monitors. On the main screen, a progress bar showed. Asset transfer, 98% complete. And then the real blow came. A news alert popped up on the lobby television screens. The Chiron read, "Breaking news. SEC investigating Sterling Dynamics for fraud after anonymous whistleblower leak." Marcus fell to his knees. It wasn't just a breakup. It wasn't just a hack. Elena had released the financial records. The records of the bribes. The records of the offshore tax evasion. The records that proved the Helios merger was based on inflated user numbers. His phone, which he had left in the penthouse, would have been ringing off the hook. But here, in the cold hum of the dying server room, there was only the sound of his own heavy breathing. At 4 a.m., the first police cars pulled up outside the building, but Elena Sterling was already 30,000 feet in the air, sipping sparkling water in a private jet paid for by a shell company Marcus didn't even know existed, watching the sunrise over the clouds. She opened her laptop. A single file was on the desktop. File name, The Restart. She clicked it. The sun rose over Manhattan, but for Marcus Sterling, it was the darkest morning of his life. The lobby of Sterling Tower, usually a cathedral of silence and power, was now a crime scene. Detective Thomas Miller of the NYPD Financial Crimes Division didn't look impressed by the marble floors or the abstract art. He walked up to Marcus, who was still slumped against the glass wall of the server room, watching the red progress bars that indicated total data loss. "Marcus Sterling?" Miller asked, his voice gravelly. Marcus looked up. His eyes were bloodshot, his tuxedo shirt unbuttoned, his expensive shoes scuffed. "You don't understand," Marcus rasped. I've been hacked. My wife. She stole everything. You need to arrest her." Miller pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. "We're not here for your wife, Mr. Sterling. We're here for you." "Me?" Marcus stood up, swaying slightly. "I'm the victim." "We received a package of documents at the district attorney's office 3 hours ago," Miller said, reciting the standard lines with practiced indifference. "They contain detailed ledgers of wire fraud, insider trading, and the falsification of federal securities documents regarding the Helios merger." "Those are lies!" Marcus screamed. "She fabricated them." "The documents include audio recordings, Mr. Sterling. Recordings of you authorizing the bribes to Senator Reynolds' re-election campaign in exchange for regulatory approval. Recordings taken inside your private office." Marcus went pale. The office? Elena had redecorated his office last year. She had insisted on the vintage mid-century modern aesthetic. She must have bugged the lamps. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back," Miller ordered. "You can't do this," Marcus stammered, looking around for an ally. Jessica was gone. She had slipped away the moment the police sirens wailed. Arthur was gone. "I am a billionaire. I employ 5,000 people." "Right now, you're just a guy in a dirty tux," Miller said, snapping the cuffs on. They were tight, cold, real. The walk out of the building was a nightmare. The press had already been tipped off, likely by the same automated email blast that alerted the SEC. As Miller led Marcus out the revolving doors, a wall of flashbulbs blinded him. "Mr. Sterling, is it true the company is insolvent? Mr. Sterling, did you use pension funds to pay for your mistress's apartment? Marcus, look this way." He tried to shield his face with his shoulder, but the handcuffs made it impossible. He was exposed. The image of Marcus Sterling, the titan of tech, being shoved into the back of a squad car, would be on the cover of the New York Post within the hour. The ride to Central Booking was silent. Marcus stared out the window at the city he used to think he owned. Now, the buildings looked like prison bars. At the station, he was processed like a common criminal. Fingerprints, mugshot. They took his shoelaces and his belt so he wouldn't hang himself. "I get a phone call," Marcus demanded, as they shoved him into a holding cell that smelled of bleach and despair. "Make it count," the guard said, pointing to the payphone on the wall. Marcus dialed his personal attorney, Bradford Calloway. Bradford was a shark. He cost $1,500 an hour and had kept Marcus out of trouble for a decade. "Bradford," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "I'm at the 1st Precinct. Get down here. I need bail." There was a long silence on the other end. "Marcus," Bradford said, his voice tight, "I can't represent you." "What? Don't give me that conflict of interest garbage. I pay your retainer." "Your retainer check bounced, Marcus," Bradford said coldly. "About an hour ago. All your accounts are frozen. The bank flagged everything as proceeds of crime based on the whistleblower evidence." "I'll pay you in cash. I have a safe in the Hamptons." "The FBI is raiding the Hamptons house as we speak," Bradford replied. "And Marcus, you should know. The whistleblower documents name me as a co-conspirator for setting up the shell companies. I'm not coming to get you. I'm busy hiring my own lawyer to keep me out of prison." Click. Marcus held the dead receiver against his ear. He slid down the wall of the cell, sitting on the cold concrete bench. Across the cell, a man with a tattoo on his neck looked at him. "Rough night, Richie Rich?" Marcus didn't answer. He buried his face in his hands. He was alone. Truly, completely alone. While Marcus was trading his tuxedo for an orange jumpsuit, Elena Sterling was walking into a private bank in Zurich, Switzerland. She looked different. Her hair, usually worn in a severe, submissive bun, was down and dyed a rich chestnut brown. She wore oversized sunglasses and a trench coat that cost more than the average car, but lacked any flashy logos. She approached the desk at Banque Privée de Genève. "Guten Morgen," she said softly. "I have an appointment with Herr Vogel, account number 77, Alpha Zero." The receptionist typed the number in. Her eyes widened slightly. She immediately picked up a phone. "Herr Vogel, your 9 LLAM is here. Yes, immediately." Minutes later, a short, balding man in an impeccable suit hurried out. "Madame, Vance, or should I say—" "Vance is fine," Elena said, shaking his hand. "Let's keep it professional, Herr Vogel." They sat in a soundproof office with a view of the lake. Herr Vogel placed a thick file on the desk. "We received the encrypted transfer keys at 3:10 a.m. New York time," Vogel said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It was a substantial amount of data and capital." "Is the liquidity secure?" Elena asked. "Completely. The funds were moved from the Red Nova shell accounts in the Cayman Islands through a series of hops in Singapore and landed here. Because the original accounts were set up under bearer bonds, which you possessed the digital keys for, the transfer is technically legal. You didn't steal Marcus Sterling's money, madam." Vogel paused, looking at the paperwork with admiration. "You simply cashed the checks he wrote to cash." Elena nodded. "And the intellectual property?" "That is the most interesting part," Vogel said. "We have reviewed the employment contracts you uploaded. When you wrote the source code for Sterling Dynamics 10 years ago, you were not an employee. You were a girlfriend. There was no contract, no transfer of IP rights. Technically, Marcus Sterling has been licensing your software for free for a decade." "And I am revoking the license," Elena said. "Precisely. By locking the servers, you simply repossessed your property. The company, Sterling Dynamics, is effectively an empty shell. It owns the furniture and the lease, but the brain is on this hard drive." Vogel tapped a silver drive on the desk. "Excellent," Elena said. "Now, for the next phase." "Next phase?" "I want to liquidate 40% of the cash assets," Elena said calmly. "I want to set up a victim restitution fund." Vogel blinked. "For whom?" "For the employees," Elena said. "The secretaries, the janitors, the junior coders, the people who are going to lose their jobs today because of Marcus's greed. I want their pensions paid. I want them to have severance. That is incredibly generous. That is nearly $50 million. Do it," Elena said. "And the rest, invest it. I'm starting a new firm, Vance Logic. And the shareholders of Sterling Dynamics, the investors?" Elena smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "They backed a man who treated people like disposable tissues. Let them fight over the scraps." She stood up and walked to the window. Her phone buzzed. It was a notification from a news app. Headline: "Marcus Sterling denied bail. Flight risk. Facing 20 years. She swiped the notification away. She didn't feel joy. She didn't feel sadness. She just felt light. The weight of 10 years of gaslighting, of being told she was too emotional, of being told she was lucky to be his wife. It was all gone. "One more thing, Herr Vogel," she said. "Yes?" "Send a package to the district attorney in New York. The B-sides." "The personal recordings?" Vogel asked nervously. "Yes. The ones of him and his mistress plotting to hide assets from the IRS. Jessica Thorne will need motivation to testify." 3 weeks later. Marcus Sterling was back in his penthouse, but it wasn't his anymore. He was out on a $10 million bond, posted by a bail bondsman who had taken a lien on Marcus's parents' retirement home, the only asset the feds hadn't frozen yet. He was under house arrest, An ankle monitor blinked on his leg. The penthouse was dark. The power had been cut for non-payment, so he was running a generator in the kitchen that powered the fridge and one lamp. The luxury furniture had been repossessed. He was sitting on a folding chair in the middle of the empty living room, eating cold cereal out of the box. He looked like a ghost. He hadn't shaved in weeks. He had lost 20 pounds. There was a knock at the door. Marcus scrambled up. "Elena," he whispered. A part of him, the delusional narcissist part, still believed she would come back, that she would see he had suffered enough and fix it. She always fixed it. He opened the door. It wasn't Eleanor. It was Jessica Thorne. She looked terrible, but better than him. She was wearing jeans and a hoodie, her eyes hidden behind sunglasses. "Jessica," Marcus breathed. "Thank God you came back. We need to plan. We need to tell them that Elena set us up." Jessica didn't step inside. She stood in the hallway, looking at the squalor behind him. "I'm not here to plan, Marcus," she said, her voice flat. "What?" "Baby, listen, I know it looks bad, but I have a stash, hidden crypto keys. Elena didn't get everything. If we can just get to—" "Stop," Jessica cut him off. "There is no stash, Marcus. Elena sent me the logs. You're broke." "She's lying." "She also sent me the recording," Jessica said, lowering her glasses to reveal red, puffy eyes. "The one from the night of the gala, when you were drunk in the limo." Marcus froze. "What recording?" "The one where you told the driver that I was just a fun diversion and that you'd dump me as soon as the stock price hit $200 so you could trade up to a European model." Marcus's mouth opened and closed. I was drunk. I didn't mean it." "The FBI played it for me this morning," Jessica said, "along with the emails where you instructed me to sign the fraudulent press releases. You set me up to take the fall, Marcus. You put my name on the lies. I was protecting the company." "You were protecting yourself," Jessica screamed. Then she took a deep breath. "So I made a deal." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "What kind of deal?" "Full immunity," she said. "In exchange for testimony. I told them everything, Marcus, about the bribes, about the fake user data, about how you forced Elena to write the code and threatened to have her institutionalized if she left." You traitor," Marcus hissed. "I gave you everything. The apartment, the jewelry." "The apartment Elena took back?" Jessica laughed bitterly. "The jewelry that the feds confiscated yesterday. You gave me nothing but a felony charge, Marcus." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device, a wire. "And by the way," she said, pulling the wire off her chest and dropping it on the floor. "They heard all of this. You just admitted to the hidden crypto keys. That's concealing assets? That's another 5 years." Marcus looked down at the small black microphone on the floor. It looked like a beetle. "Goodbye, Marcus," Jessica said. She turned and walked down the hallway toward the service elevator. "Jessica, come back!" Marcus screamed, running to the doorway. The ankle monitor beeped loudly, warning him he was at the perimeter. "You can't do this to me. I am Marcus Sterling." "Not anymore," she called back without looking. "Now, you're just inmate number 4920. She got on the elevator. The doors closed. Marcus stood in the doorway of his empty, dark palace. The generator in the kitchen sputtered and died. The silence rushed back in, heavy and suffocating. Then, the phone rang. Not his cell phone, that was long gone. The landline. The one that had been dead. Marcus stared at it. He walked over slowly, his hands shaking. He picked up the receiver. "Hello?" "Hello, Marcus." The voice was cool, crisp, and utterly calm. It was Eleanor. "Eleanor," he sobbed. He fell to his knees. "Eleanor, please, I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Just stop it. Give me the key. Give me the money back. I'll sign whatever you want." "It's not about the money, Marcus," Elena said. Her voice sounded like it was coming from a great distance, yet intimate, as if she were whispering in his ear. "I just wanted to tell you something. Something I never said in 10 years of marriage." "What? What is it?" "I'm listening." "You always said I was lucky," Elena said. "You said I was lucky you picked me out of the IT department. Lucky you married me. Lucky you let me live in your house. I was wrong. You're smart. You're the smart one." "No, Marcus, you were right. I was lucky." Marcus paused, confused. "What?" "I was lucky," Elena continued, "that you were so arrogant you never thought to check if your trophy wife was the only one with the admin password." "Elena, check your email, Marcus. I just sent you a final document. It's the divorce papers. You don't need to sign them. My lawyers petitioned the court for a default judgment based on your incarceration. It's over." "Where are you?" Marcus wept. "Tell me where you are." "I'm exactly where you left me, Marcus," Elena said. "In the past. Goodbye." Click. The line went dead. Outside, sirens began to wail again. Louder this time, closer. They weren't coming to investigate. They were coming to revoke his bail. Marcus dropped the phone. He sat on the floor in the dark, waiting for the inevitable end. The trial of United States versus Marcus Sterling was dubbed the trial of the decade by the media. But inside the courtroom of the Southern District of New York, it felt more like a funeral. 6 months had passed since the night of the gala. Marcus had aged 10 years in that time. His hair, once perfectly coiffed and dyed midnight black, was now thinning and grey. He wore a suit that was clearly off the rack, ill-fitting at the shoulders, a humiliation for a man who used to fly his tailor in from Milan. He sat next to his public defender, a young, overworked attorney named Sarah Jenkins, who looked like she hadn't slept in a week. She was the only one willing to take his case after his assets were seized. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed. The Honourable Judge Richard Halloway swept into the room. He was a man known for his disdain for white-collar criminals. He peered over his spectacles at Marcus with the look one might give a cockroach on a kitchen floor. "Be seated," Judge Halloway said. "We are here for sentencing. The jury has found the defendant guilty on all 34 counts, including racketeering, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, and witness tampering." Marcus trembled. He looked at the gallery behind him. It was packed. Reporters, former employees, angry shareholders. But the seat he kept looking at, the front row, reserved for victims, was empty. Elena wasn't there. She hadn't come to the arraignment. She hadn't come to the trial. She hadn't given a victim impact statement. She had sent a lawyer to read a brief statement that simply said, "I have reclaimed my life. I have no time to waste on the past." It was the ultimate insult. He wasn't even worth her gloating. "Mr. Sterling," Judge Halloway said, his voice booming, "do you have anything to say before I pass sentence?" Marcus stood up. His legs felt like jelly. He gripped the table. "Your Honor," Marcus croaked, I built this city. I created jobs. I am a visionary. I made a mistake, yes. I trusted the wrong people. My wife, she orchestrated this. She is the mastermind." A ripple of laughter went through the courtroom. It wasn't mocking laughter. It was the tired laughter of people listening to a delusional man. "Mr. Sterling," the judge cut him off, "the court has reviewed the evidence provided by Ms. Vance. It includes terabytes of data showing you explicitly overriding her safety protocols to defraud investors. It includes audio of you threatening to, and I quote, destroy her sanity if she ever tried to leave. You are not a visionary, sir. You are a bully who got caught." The judge opened the file in front of him. "The prosecution has asked for the maximum sentence. Given the magnitude of the loss, billions of dollars in pension funds wiped out, and your total lack of remorse, I am inclined to agree." Marcus looked at Sarah Jenkins. She looked down at her notepad, refusing to meet his eyes. "Marcus Sterling, I hereby sentence you to 25 years in a federal correctional facility with no possibility of parole for the first 20 years. You are also ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $450 million. "I don't have that kind of money," Marcus screamed, losing his composure. "She took it all." "Then you will work in the prison commissary for 12 cents an hour until the debt is paid," Judge Holloway said coldly. "By my calculation, that should take you approximately 4 billion years. Take him away." The gavel banged. It sounded like a gunshot. Two marshals grabbed Marcus by the arms. "No, no!" Marcus shouted as he was dragged backward. "Elena, I know you're watching. You can't do this. I am Sterling. I am the king." The door swung shut, cutting off his screams. Outside on the courthouse steps, the cameras flashed. But they weren't waiting for Marcus. They were turning their lenses toward a black SUV, pulling up to the curb. The back window rolled down. It wasn't Elena. It was Arthur Penhaligon. He stepped out, looking younger and happier than he had in years. He walked to the microphone bank. "Mr. Penhaligon," a reporter shouted, "what is the reaction from Vance Logic regarding the verdict?" Arthur adjusted his tie. "Ms. Vance is satisfied that justice has been served. However, she could not be here today." "Why not?" Arthur smiled. "She is currently in Tokyo, ringing the opening bell at the stock exchange. Vance Logic just went public. The IPO is the largest in tech history." The reporters scrambled to check their phones. The stock ticker showed Vance skyrocketing. Marcus Sterling was in a holding cell, being shackled for transport to a maximum security prison. Elena Sterling, now Elena Vance, was making her first billion entirely on her own terms. 1 year later. The Federal Correctional Institution at Otisville was a place of grey concrete and fluorescent desperation. For inmate No. 4920, formerly known as Marcus Sterling, it was a living hell. Marcus sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the peeling paint on the wall. He had lost 30 pounds. His once manicured hands were rough and calloused from his assigned work detail. Laundry duty. The man who used to wear Italian silk suits now spent 10 hours a day folding scratchy, bleach-stained uniforms for criminals. "Hey, Sterling!" a voice shouted from the cell block corridor. "Move it! It's commissary day! Don't you want your crackers?" Marcus flinched. He hated commissary day. It was a reminder of his poverty. His prison account was perpetually empty. The $450 million restitution order meant that any money sent to him by distant relatives was instantly garnished by the state. He lived on the meager wages of his laundry job, 12 cents an hour. He shuffled into the line, keeping his head down. He craved coffee, real coffee. Not the brown sludge served in the cafeteria, but a jar of instant coffee in the commissary cost 12,000 euros. That was 100 hours of laundry. He reached the front of the line. The inmate behind the plexiglass window, a guy named Tiny, sneered at him. "What do you want, Sterling? You got 40 cents. "Just a packet of ramen," Marcus whispered, his pride long gone. "Price went up," Tiny said, pointing to the printed list. "Ramen is 50 cents now. Inflation, boss." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He turned away, empty-handed, as the line behind him laughed. "Look at the billionaire, can't even afford noodles." He walked back to the common area, defeated. He wanted to call his lawyer. Well, the public defender who rarely answered. But phone calls were 5 cents a minute. He couldn't afford to hear a human voice. Meanwhile, 90 miles south in Manhattan, the atmosphere was very different. The skyscraper at 100 Wall Street had undergone a transformation. The heavy, masculine energy of Sterling Dynamics was gone. The lobby was now flooded with natural light, filled with kinetic sculptures and living greenery. The chrome letters above the reception desk read, Vance Logic. Elena Vance walked into the boardroom. The room fell silent instantly. She didn't walk like a scorned wife anymore. She walked like a titan. She wore a cream-colored suit that cost more than Marcus's old bail bond. Her hair was cut into a sharp, chic bob. "Good morning," she said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "Good morning, Ms. Vance," the board members chorused. These were some of the most powerful people in finance, and they looked at her with a mix of fear and reverence. "Let's skip the formalities," Elena said, tapping her tablet. "I've reviewed the quarterly earnings. The Protocol Zero cybersecurity suite has successfully stopped 42 attempted bank hacks in Europe this month. Our stock is up 18%. "It's a remarkable quarter, Eleanor," said Julian Thorne, a senior investor, and no relation to Jessica, who was currently working at a diner in New Jersey under a witness protection program. "However, we have a question about a line item in your personal discretionary budget." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "You've allocated a significant sum, nearly $20 million, to acquire a mid-sized logistics firm called Sentinel Secure Solutions. They manage prison supply chains. It seems off-brand for a high-tech AI company." Elena leaned back in her chair, a small, enigmatic smile playing on her lips. "Sentinel manages the commissary and telecommunications contracts for the Federal Bureau of Prisons in the Northeast region," Elena said calmly. "It's not off-brand, Julian. It's vertical integration. We're capturing data points from every sector of society." "But the margins are razor-thin," Julian argued. "Prisons are a low-profit volume business." "I'm not buying it for the profit," Elena said softly. "I'm buying it for the user experience." The board members exchanged confused glances. "Approve the acquisition," Elena said, her voice leaving no room for debate, "and immediately implement the Fair Communications Initiative I drafted." "The initiative where we lower prices?" Julian asked, looking at the file. "Ms. Vance, this proposes dropping phone rates to 0 and reducing luxury food items by 90%. We'll be operating at a loss." "I can afford the loss," Elena said, standing up to signal the meeting was over. "Just make sure the rebranding happens fast. I want every receipt, every phone screen, and every vending machine to display the new parent company logo by Monday morning." She walked to the window, looking north toward the horizon, toward Otisville. "It's about brand recognition," she whispered to herself. 3 days later, at Otisville Correctional. Marcus was mopping the floor of the cell block when a buzz went through the prisoners. "Yo, check it out!" someone shouted from the phone bank. "The phones! They're free!" "What? I'm telling you, I just dialed my mum in Queens. No credit check, no charge. It says, courtesy call." Marcus stopped mopping. He looked at the commissary kiosk. A line was forming, but people weren't angry. They were excited. "Sterling!" Tiny shouted from the window. "Get your ass over here." Marcus walked over, wary of a trap. "What?" "Look at the screen, man. Glitch in the system or something. That jar of Belgian instant coffee you're always drooling over? It's ringing up for 10 cents. Marcus stared at the digital screen. Premium Belgian gold coffee. Price, $0 per tass. $10. He felt a surge of adrenaline. He fished a wrinkled dollar bill out of his sock, his emergency stash. "I'll take it," Marcus said, his hands shaking. "And a chocolate bar, and the fresh soap." "Coming right up, big spender," Tiny said, punching the keys. The transaction cleared. For the first time in a year, Marcus held luxury in his hands, a jar of coffee, a bar of Swiss chocolate. It felt like winning the lottery. He felt a sudden, pathetic surge of gratitude toward the universe. Maybe God has forgiven me, he thought. Here's your receipt, Tiny said, ripping the paper from the machine. Marcus took the receipt. He planned to savor the chocolate in his cell. He looked down at the slip of paper to check his remaining balance. At the top of the receipt, in bold black ink, was the new logo of the vendor. Sentinel Secure Solutions, a wholly owned subsidiary of Vance Logic. Marcus froze. The world stopped spinning. The noise of the prison faded into a high-pitched ringing in his ears. He looked at the coffee jar. He looked at the chocolate. She bought the store. He looked over at the phone bank. Above the phones, a new digital banner scrolled across the LED screen. Free connections provided courtesy of Elena Vance. Because everyone deserves a voice. Marcus dropped the jar of coffee. It shattered on the concrete floor, glass and brown powder exploding everywhere. She wasn't just free. She wasn't just rich. She was here. She was the reason he could eat. She was the reason he could speak. She had turned his prison into her dollhouse. He wasn't suffering because of the system anymore. He was surviving solely because of her charity. No, Marcus wheezed, backing away. No, no, no. What's wrong with you, man? Tiny asked. You dropped your stuff. She owns it, Marcus screamed, clutching his head. She owns the coffee. She owns the phones. She owns the air. He ran back to his cell, scrambling onto his bunk, pulling the thin blanket over his head. He curled into a ball, shaking uncontrollably. It wasn't mercy. It was the ultimate power move. She had stripped him of his last defense, his victimhood. He couldn't even hate the system anymore, because she was the system. Every time he took a bite of food, he would taste her success. Every time he made a call, he would have to thank her. He was trapped in a cage, and she was the one paying for the bird seed. Manhattan, the penthouse. Eleanor stood on the balcony of her new apartment, overlooking Central Park. It was dusk. The city lights were flickering on, 1 billion diamonds scattered across the black velvet of the night. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from the warden of Otisville, whom she had personally spoken to earlier that day. Message: the new pricing structure is live. Inmate morale is at an all-time high. Thank you for your generosity, Ms. Vance. Although, we had one incident. Inmate Sterling had a panic attack in the mess hall. He's currently in the infirmary under sedation. Elena read the message. She didn't smile. She didn't laugh. She simply felt a quiet, geometric sense of completion, like the final click of a solved Rubik's Cube. She typed a reply. Ensure he receives the best care and charge the medical bill to my personal account. She hit send. She turned off her phone and placed it on the railing. She looked out at the city that Marcus had tried to conquer with noise and greed. She had taken it with silence and strategy. The wind blew through her hair. She was 40 years old. She was alone. And for the first time in her life, she was entirely, beautifully free. She picked up a glass of wine and raised it to the moon. Checkmate, she whispered. And that is the terrifying genius of Eleanor Vance. Most people want revenge. They want to see their enemy scream. But Eleanor understood something deeper. She didn't just want to hurt Marcus. She wanted to become his god. By buying the prison services and lowering the prices, she ensured that Marcus couldn't even escape her memory. He had to eat her food, use her phones, and live by her grace. Marcus Sterling spent his life thinking money was a weapon to beat people with. Elena showed him that money is actually a net, and he was just a fish she had decided to keep in a jar. Thank you so much for watching this saga of betrayal and brilliance. This story reminds us that the quietest person in the room is often the one you should fear the most. I have a question for you guys. Do you think Elena went too far by buying the prison company, or was it the perfect punishment for a narcissist like Marcus? Let me know your honest opinion in the comments below. If you enjoyed this long-form drama, please hit that like button and share this video with a friend who loves a good revenge story. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to see our next story. Until next time, never underestimate the person who knows your passwords. Stay safe.